I don't think the game's over.
Welcome into Triple Zeros. I'm your host, Josh Buckhalter. Follow me on Twitter at JoshUBuck. Hit up the Facebook page at Clocker Sports. Check out the website, clockersports.com. And the email address is clockersports@gmail.com. Got not a lot to get to, man. It's slim pickings around these parts this time of year. Sports have been shut down for, a month plus now. And it's not a month plus, I'm stretching it, but it's been rough. And really all we have now are a lot of the off-season workings and things to kind of talk about and really take apart, because a lot of it has been about how organizations, how leagues are planning on dealing with no seasons and delayed seasons. And to start off, we talk about the NBA, who are facing quite the conundrum because they were in the midst of their season and had to cancel it. They still have no champion crown. They weren't even in the playoffs yet. And so now we recently come to find out that the owners have been pushing for a cancellation of the season, or rather planning for a cancellation of the season. And in doing so, they have even begun looking into ways that they could hold back players' salaries by 25% by a process called force majeure. And I hope I'm saying that properly. I'm not great in my Latin, but they are trying to basically shut everything down and enable themselves to recoup a pool of the money they would be losing by the shutdown happening. It's estimated they would be losing about $1 billion. So it's not a small amount of money, but it's definitely not something that any fans are looking forward to, because I just think that it's not even just I think. This is what I know. Nobody wants to be told that they are going to have to get a pay cut, let alone be told that they're going to have to either do so, or, as we find out from Brian Windhorst, if the players do not, and I'll read this to you verbatim, but if the players do not give up the money ahead of time, they will be forced to pay it back post the season. So once everything gets going back and they do get to make money again, they will have to give that money back. So here's the exact quote, so make sure everything's clear. The NBPA does not agree to withhold, if the NBPA does not agree to possible force majeure payments in similar escrow fashion, players would have to pay back the difference in the money owed to the team at season's end. If a player is traded or signs a free agent deal with a new team without having fulfilled the payment, the new team would be required to withhold the difference in salary payment to the player and send the money owed to the previous team, according to the CBA. Basically, again, at the season's end, the player would owe the money if they didn't put the money in an escrow account ahead of time. So they would owe the money back at the end of the year. And if they were to be traded or signed by another team, then the new team would be on the hook for that remaining money. That's a little wild clause to be put in there. I'm not sure how you... I'm already against giving the players a reduced salary. Now, it's odd because in basketball, right, if they're not on the floor playing, you totally would say, well, what are they getting their full salary for? And I have to look at the breakdown if they get the full amount of money during the offseason, but I would imagine you would go to some sort of offseason model if it's not the same. To say that if they don't pay it back, and first of all, there's no obviously no choice if they go to the force majeure. And again, I hope I'm saying that properly, but there just seems like this was a horrible, short-sighted agreement on the CBA by the players to agree to have this part put in your deal. I'm not necessarily sure I wouldn't want to put any time. Now, I'm sure this is a doomsday option, a nuclear option that the owners put in there in case something like this happened. But still, I know the players come next CBA are going to be looking long and hard about any possible ways that the owners are trying to get back money when anything goes down, because, it may not be... If the owners don't want to take a hit, imagine what the players are trying to feel. Like, I know the owners are losing money too, and these are billionaires losing billions. I'm not sure I don't know how to equate it, but I'm not going to say that there's any difference. I'll just say it's the same thing. People losing money are people losing money, period, point blank. And so for the owners to try to come at the play, now they've already taken away some of the top executive salaries across the league. They've already slashed those. Remember the story a couple weeks ago about the Sixers trying to do it to some of the lower level staff and ended up saying no, they weren't going to do it and everything like that. All the fuss that came from about that. It seems as though the league is really trying to push this. That's why you get that first take that I had earlier, that the league, the owners are pushing for, because I don't know. Now, granted, you plan properly at all times, but this seems to be what they've been talking about a lot. Windhorst seems to be a mouthpiece for those types in the NBA, and for this to be one of his major talking points, to me, signifies that that's what the owners are pushing for a lot, and that's what they are more prefer than rather having a delayed season that's going to run into the next season. See, I kind of get that. You would basically don't restart it and push anything back, and then you double up on the next season and have a quick turnaround, because then you run the risk of injury for guys being overran. I get that part, in part, excuse me. But what I don't understand is this delay. If you are pushing for it so hard, then you kind of should come out and announce it, ahead of time. Now, I know you got to weigh the pros and cons and see when everything can be all clear. And Adam Silver came out and said that nobody would know if they would be able to resume the season until May 1st at the earliest. At that point, you're talking about games running to the late summer and finals in about August, and your season starting up very soon right after that, and that's where you get that issue. Matt Barnes, after getting off the phone in a meeting with Danny Green, after getting off the phone in a meeting with the NBPA, said that players are fighting to continue the season, and that they'll do whatever they can, whatever is necessary to make sure that they have a season. He believes they will have one. His teammate, Jared Dudley, came out and said that this is the Lakers' best chance to win. So they're kind of, feeling the squeeze a bit by not having the season go on. LeBron is 35 years old. The Lakers' window, it's not closing, but it's probably as wide open, especially how dominant they were being when they were all healthy this year. So that's just one thing to keep an eye on, man. It's not a lot going on around the sports world right now. The NBA does have their 2K tournament going on. I haven't really been able to keep up with that. I tried to keep interest. Zach LaVine lost. Kevin Durant lost. It loses the appeal immediately. I'm talking about it almost as soon as the TV turns on, because it's no longer doing anything special. Not saying that they're not good at the game. That's not the point. That doesn't impress me. You know what I mean? Like, that's not as impressive to me. So I was excited about it, because I was like, yeah, they should do this, and they're missing out by not, and they should maximize on everybody being home, and there's a lot of players, blah, all of that. I was all for it. Nah, son. This ain't it. It's just not. And I might be in the minority here, but it's just not it for me. Again, I can do this myself. I don't need. I don't need this. I just don't need it. Real quick, like I said, man, it's not a heavy dose of things going on tonight, but we're gonna switch gears to the NFL and talk about what's going on there. It's not as lot. We're gonna have to actually come back to the NBA in a bit, but the NFL sent out a memo that they will be conducting their draft entirely virtually. Now, Zoom meetings have become all the rage lately, but I'm pretty sure that no NFL executives feel that they would have to be selecting players this fashion in this year's NFL draft. There have been no meetings. There have been no physicals. Not even any of the free agents have been able to take physicals, really. I think there have been a couple down in Florida that were able to do so because they weren't under quarantine or anything like that. But by and large, in the NFL, no one has been able to take a physical. You actually had a deal breakdown in part because of a delayed medical examination of Michael Brockers, who initially signed a deal with the Baltimore Ravens, but returned to the Los Angeles Rams after his deal fell through due to an ankle sprain, I believe it was. So this is already creating a lot of problems, but now you're going to be asking them teams to take players, and you have players like Tua Tagovailoa, who has reportedly been given the all clear with his hip injury, but no one in the NFL has been able to examine him. And the crazy part about it is that the whole draft process is already a gamble. It's already, not a science. It's an art form. And to see it go this way is the wildest thing, because it's just like they're really playing Madden, right? So you got the NFL, or the NBA, playing the 2K tournament. And the NFL's like, okay, well, we're gonna step it up one better, and we're gonna play Madden or have a fantasy football draft in real life. And speaking of Madden, EA is going to be getting involved, and they were going to be doing virtual presentations or walk-ups for every player when they get selected, which is a really cool feature that they probably should be adding into the next year's draft if they're paying attention to what they're doing right now. But it's a weird time. Teams have had, like I said, no contact with prospects or free agents, and that's just the way they're going to be conducting it. Now, obviously it's a 1-year deal, but you're going to see the same thing with the NBA, at least as of right now. The teams, and I told you we'd have to go back to it, but teams have been told that they will be limited to virtual meetings only with prospects for the 2020 NBA draft. They will be getting, I believe, 2 hours per week maximum with a prospect and up to 4 hours per prospect. So you're already limited time and you don't get much to ask and you can't do anything physical. So that's very restricting in that regard. But back to the NFL. It's really wild because the NFL was so close to their whole draft and everything. And at the beginning of all this, it seemed as though they would have a chance to make their season actually happen on time, or their off-season event, happen on time. And things have just been getting canceled back to back to back because no one knows when everything's going to open back up. Now, they had a call of all the owners and the president, and reportedly the call went along the lines of they expect things to be open the football season to open on time. We will see how that happens. Obviously, everybody's optimistic because sports world needs sports, because sports world knows sports without sports. You understand what I'm trying to say with all of that. Now, other things that are going around, the NFL and other rules changes or other legislation maneuvers, I guess. I don't know how to really phrase it at this point. There will be no more pass interference review, more than likely. A 1-year deal, a 1-year experiment that really wasn't that effective. While it did give fans a chance to see a lot of those calls that they knew were questionable be looked at and actually get reviewed, it ultimately most of the time resulted in the refs staying with the call on the field and not wanting to overturn anything that they had already called. So it's a waste of time. A good idea. Execution was bad. I'm not sure if necessarily eliminating it is the right idea because, just because you guys don't want to call it doesn't mean it didn't happen. But I also understand it's not that big a deal that you got to be stopping up the whole game for 2 minutes when there's already enough stoppages as it is, unless, of course, you are a New Orleans Saints fan. So that's one that went away. Didn't really upset me, but it was one that I thought was kind of like, oh, that's an interesting thing that they went back. And now, granted, they're going to be getting their, 17-game, 18-game schedule, 2 more teams in the playoffs, 17-week season, 17-game season, 2 more teams in the playoffs, and that's going to be coming up, not this coming year, but the next season. So I'm not sure exactly why you wouldn't. You're going to need the PI review. I think you're going to with as tight as the races for playoffs are going to be down the stretch in a couple of years. You're going to need something that's going to separate, and teams are going to be nitpicking at every little thing, and it's going to come back to this again. Will it be the Saints again? Who knows? But I think that maybe they restrict it. Maybe they let it be on plays that were initiated by New York. I don't know. I feel like getting rid of it, though, after the 1 year is the wrong idea. I would have maybe liked to have seen them try to address the referee issue in this, which I think is something that we don't talk about enough. I know during the season we do when it's happening, but when it's in this downtime and they're actually making the rules that affect the game, I don't think people talk enough about how bad the refereeing, the actual calls are on the field. And people attribute that to no one knowing what the call, what the rule is. Well, the referee should know what the rule is. And I think you see too many times on the field, like at least I have in a lot of the games, and this is not just watching Bears games, as we all know I'm a Bears fan, so I'm not even talking about them, but there's just been a lot of bad refereeing for a while now, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that they don't do the permanent referees, no full-time refs. Remember a couple seasons ago they had the lockout on the referees and they had the replacements, but when the new refs came back, it seems like they just never stepped their game up at all, and in some ways even regressed. Now, I'm not saying that they need to be out here calling every little thing, but there have been flag fests, and then there's been ones where they're just blatantly calling one side or just missing ridiculous calls. I just think they need to tighten up the reins if we're going to sit here and comment on every rule change they're going to make. The NFL can do away with a lot of that by addressing the source of the issue, which is bad refereeing. There's a lot of bad refereeing. Sooner they deal with that, the better we'll all be. Last issue we're going to talk about, the NFL released their all-decade team, Pro Football Weekly, I believe, released their all-decade team, and people were upset because Aaron Rodgers made the list over Drew Brees. And when you look at the raw stats, it's kind of, depending on what you depending on what you want to place most of your value on. Now, I will start off by saying that Rodgers played in 11 fewer games than Drew Brees did. I'm not sure what value you put on games played, but Brees has 40 more touchdowns than Rodgers does. He does have more picks, but that, again, more games, and he tossed about 1,000 more passes. Rodgers has the higher touchdown ratio and the lower interception ratio, so better in both categories, and has actually won one fewer game than Brees. They run around the same amount of games, and Brees is the games that Brees has played. Rodgers has a tie in there too, but the games that Brees has played more than Rodgers have been losses. So I'm not sure that you can make the argument as strong as people want to. I get them wanting to go for the stats, but I think this is kind of the NFL showing you that, if Rodgers would have been healthy, there's a good chance that he has, I don't know about 45 touchdowns in 11 games. That's probably not, there's a good chance that that's not happening. Just a shot in the dark here. But 6'1" to 5'8" in the touchdown department, and then it was like 2'1" to 1'3" in the interception ratio. Rodgers' numbers are historically ridiculous. Brees puts up numbers. He's a volume shooter. He's a volume scorer. Rodgers' efficiency is what. Now, I know people are going to say, but Drew Brees' completion percentage is 69% and Rodgers is at 64 point something. That's fine. I'm just telling you where I think the logic is. Now, you want to talk about Rodgers' record against winning teams and his lack of playoff victories, and you can do the same thing about at least the playoff victories part for Drew Brees, and you could do something about him outside of the Superdome, but we're not going to get into that. Mercedes-Benz Dome, we're not going to get into that right now, though. The point of the matter is this is not as clear-cut or as offensive as people might think. That's what I'm getting at here. Rodgers, for all the flack that he's taken for being pretty average for the last couple of years, is not as bad as people think he is. Now, a lot of it's been because they've been letting him just kind of do everything that the offense, do everything for the offense. But again, he's missed some time. He's missed plenty of time to the point where I don't necessarily think you could say that Brees' overall, again, volume of numbers really supersedes what Rodgers has done all that much. Just a personal opinion, just saying. But I really don't think that people are giving this enough. And it's coming from maybe it's just because I'm a scoring Bears fan. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's respect as a fan who's had to see that firsthand and witness what kind of things go on when that bad man gets to ripping them. But it doesn't really bother me nearly as much as it did. Seems to have bothered most people. So that was pretty much the only one that I had an issue with. I don't really get too wrapped up in those because they're a random panel. Not random. They're qualified. But it's a group of people. It's a group of people's opinion, right? And as much as an authority that we would see them as, you're going to differ in opinion. So the Rodgers Brees one, I don't think it's really that. I honestly don't think it's a big deal to have either one. And as long as you got Brady up there as number one, which they do, it's all good. And I believe I saw that there were 8 or 9 players on the list who at one time were Patriots, which does include Antonio Brown. But still, that's an incredible list. It shows you how dominant that organization has been over the past decade plus. 20 years Tom Brady was there, but he's not there anymore. He's going to be on Tampa Bay Buccaneers next year. And if you tune into the next episode of Triple Zeros, I will be talking with Bobby Peters. He is a football coach, a civil engineer, and also wrote the book on the 2018 Bears and the 2019 Buccaneers. I'm going to talk to him about what he saw different last year from the Bears, what he expects to see different from the Buccaneers this year, and a couple of other things. So tune into the next episode of Triple Zeros for that. That's going to do it for this episode, though. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at JoshGBuck. Hit up the Facebook page at Clocker Sports, the website clockersports.com. The email address is clockersports@gmail.com. Read the stuff. Pimpin' ain't easy. Just dropped a article talking about the predicting the champion of the next Bulls one-on-one tournament. You saw that list floating around on Twitter not too long ago, and I just wanted you to know, last time Arch won it, last time on that Run With Us episode, they showed Arch winning it. Who would win it next time? Not going to tell you, not going to give you some spoilers, but it is an upset to get to the championship and ultimately steal the victory. So check that out. And then last word on pro football, recently dropped the article about Ryan Pace and all of his cat magic cannot make the criticisms disappear. check that article out as well. Again, hit me up on Twitter at Josh G. Buck. That's going to do it for this episode. Also, check out everybody else on the Clocker Sports team, man. You got Stephen Ryan with Punching the Clock. You got Tyler Pearson with T for 3, Will Clark, Luke Steffen, Tony Guzman. Everybody out here got tons of guys, man. We're trying to get things cracking. So follow us, clockersports.com. But until the very next time, you already know what it is, man. I'm gone.